Hey, what's up, my yarny peeps? It's Crystal. Thank you all for joining me today. So today I'm going to do another yarn 101. I haven't done one in a while, and I'm going to start doing more of those because people have asked. They're interested in learning more about yarn. So today we're going to go over different weights of yarn and how they can be different, different names for them, or, you know, maybe what good uses are for them, and how they differ, the names differ from. So I'm from the US, in case you don't know. So the names that I call yarn, as far as the weight class, is going to be different than what people in the UK and say Australia use. So I'm going to go over the weights versus names of US, what we call it in the US versus the UK and Australia. So hopefully that will clear some confusion, because I get a lot of people that watch me from those places, and I don't want anybody to be confused if I say, hey, use a 4 weight. You know, maybe someone that's new from Australia is not going to know what that is in Australia, because it's not called a 4 weight in Australia. So let's go ahead and we'll start. We'll go ahead and start real quick, so this isn't too long of a video. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with, in the US, it was a lot, so I had to write it down. This would be considered a 0. So yarn's classified by numbers and by names in the US. So this would be considered a 0 weight yarn, which is also commonly crochet thread, or is called a fingering yarn. Can be called that. In the UK, it would be considered a 1 ply, and in Australia, it would be considered a 2 ply. Okay, and this is yarn that I dyed myself, but a 1 or a 0 lace weight is very, very thin, very, very thin. It's not anything that I can use, so it's great for if you got the patience. You know, it makes beautiful shawls. But it's also, a lot of people like to use the lace weight for doilies. And, you know, super time, it's time consuming to use a lace weight yarn. Unfortunately, I can't use yarns that are this small because I have arthritis in my left hand. There was a day I could, but I still didn't enjoy it because they were so thin. Now, this is yarn that my husband hand dyed, but it is a 0, a lace weight. Also could be called, you could hear it called thread or fingering in the US. So as you can see, it's super thin, like a piece of thread. Now it's thicker than sewing thread, but it's really thin yarn. So that would be the number 0 lace weight. Now we'll move on to what would be a number 1, which is called a super fine. Sometimes a number 1 is called a baby yarn. Sometimes you'll hear it referred to as a sock yarn, and a number 1 can also be a fingering weight yarn too. Now in the UK, a number 1 in the US would be a 2 ply in the UK, and in Australia, a number 1 in the US would be considered a 3 ply. Okay, so I'll give you an example of a number 1. Okay, so this would be the number 1. If you're wondering what this is called, NACO, Angora Lux. So it is a 1, and unfortunately I can't use a 1, which is a super fine in the US at all. It's too thin for me to use. But if you can use the number 1, it's great for many things too. You can make tops. These are great for gorgeous shawls. You know, really no yarn, any weight, can be excluded from anything. If you really have a creative imagination, you can use this for pretty much anything that you wanted. But it does make beautiful shawls, beautiful lightweight shawls, lightweight tops, scarves, stuff like that. That's just something, unfortunately, it's very thin for me. But this would be in the US a number 1 weight, which is a super fine, or you might hear it called a sock yarn, a fingering yarn, or a baby yarn. Okay, and now we're going to move on to number 2. Number 2 is a fine. Number 2 is a fine weight. normally I'll just say a 2 weight. And you'll hear it sometimes called a baby yarn also, or a sport weight is classified as 2 in the US. So a sport weight or a number 2 fine is in the UK it would be a 4 ply. In Australia it would be a 5 ply. So this would be a 2 weight right here. Again, very thin for me to use, unfortunately. There's lots of pretty yarns for 2 weights, but I can't use it. But that's about the thickness of a 2 weight. Some of these are going to vary, you know, of course, all yarn varies weight classes. They can't all be exact, but this is about an average 2 weight in my opinion. Again, beautiful for anything. If you just have the patience to work with fine yarns, lots of people like fine yarns. You can really throw out some beautiful, beautiful items with fine yarns. And unfortunately, I just can't do it anymore, having arthritis. I never really liked it to begin with anyways, but yes, 2 weight. In the US, which also I said is fine, could be a baby or commonly called a sport weight also. So that's a number 2. Now we're going to move on to a 3 weight. Now a 3 weight in the US, it's called a 3 weight light. Most commonly I will call it a lightweight 3 in my videos, or a DK, which stands for a double knit. Those are the most common names for it in the US, but it's technically called 3 weight light. But I always say lightweight 3. I'm backwards again. So this would be an average lightweight 3 right here. Now, this is Hirschner's pastry puff, in case you're wondering. That to me is probably about a perfect lightweight 3. Now, some lightweight 3s are, you'll hear me say that's a lightweight 3. Or a heavy lightweight 3, meaning that it's a little bit thicker than your normal lightweight 3 or a little bit thinner than your normal lightweight 3, and that's expectable. Some yarns are like that. This one right here, it's called King Cole Glitz. I would consider this a lighter lightweight 3, almost on the verge of being a 2. So I would sometimes say that's a cross between a 2 and a 3. So I know yarn weights are confusing, but once you learn them and you get them down, you'll be able to tell just by eyeing it what it is. So a lightweight 3, like I said, in the US, it's called a number 3 light. But I call it it's commonly called a lightweight 3 or a DK. Now, if you're in the UK, it's called a DK. And if you're in Australia, it would be an 8 ply yarn. Okay, now we're going to move to a common one, the 4 weight. Now I can't, like I said, I do have arthritis. I generally don't go below a 4 weight yarn. Sometimes I'll use a 3 if it's not a really thin 3, but we'll go and see what the 4 weight. Now the 4 weight is very common, probably maybe one of the most common yarns used, I would say. So a 4 weight is classified as a medium. It's just number 4 medium. So I usually say a medium weight number 4. That would be my common name for when I am mentioning yarns. But also it has other names. Sometimes it's just referred to Afghan yarn or Aran yarn or a worsted yarn. And in the UK, they do classify a 4 weight as an Aran yarn. So that's what they would call a 4 weight in the UK. And in Australia, a 4 weight would be a 10 ply to those in Australia. Now this is our average 4 weight here. Is what I would call a perfect 4. If you want to know what this is, Lion Brand Heartland. Now some 4 weights are thicker than others, but this I would say is just about perfect of a 4 weight. In my opinion. That's just my opinion. But yes. So most of the times you'll hear me call this a medium weight number 4. That's usually my term for it. If I'm buying yarn from the UK, I will call it a Aran yarn because generally that's what they have it labeled as. So I would just say what they have. But yes, that's a 4-weight. So yes, it does have many names. And a worsted. Sometimes I think a worsted 4 is just a little bit thicker than a regular 4. So like the lightweight 3, a 4-weight can be, I consider this a medium weight, perfect medium weight number 4 to me. But there are yarns that are 4-weights that I would say it's a thicker 4-weight or a heavy 4, or a thinner 4-weight or a lighter 4, because I just don't want anybody to, it's really hard to explain. Now this is a worsted weight, and as you can see, sometimes worsted weight 4s tend to be a little thicker than regular 4s. But there we go. Not much, but a little bit. It is a little thicker of a 4 than what your average 4-weight would be. Now these are only giving you just small examples of the differences of the yarns, but I'm trying to give you a basic. Now this is your basic 4-weight. Now we're going to move on to a bulky 5, which is my favorite. Now number 5 is just called a bulky yarn. I call it a bulky number 5. Usually that's what I'll say in my videos, or a bulky weight 5. It can also be called a chunky, rug yarn, or craft yarn. You can hear it called all those names, and it would still be their meaning a bulky 5. Bulky 5 is my favorite yarn. So I'll give you a couple examples of a bulky 5 and how they can be different depending on the brand, and just depending, I guess. Now this is scarfy yarn. Now scarfy yarn is classified as a bulky 5. Now I always say that scarfy is on the thinner side of a bulky 5. I do not consider it a perfect bulky 5, but it is a bulky still. But if you would ask to me, I would say it's a light bulky. Now this is Bernat Symphony, which is also a bulky 5. Now to me, this is a perfect bulky. See that? That, it would be me considering that a perfect bulky weight 5. Now you can see it in comparison with the scarfy, the difference in the two. If I can get them held up correctly here. You can see scarfy is a little thinner. Maybe if I put them closer together. It's hard. It's hard to hold them both up in my hands. Okay, now you can see that bulky 5 scarfy, the blue, is thinner than the bulky 5 Symphony, Bernat Symphony here. That's the gold color. So both are considered bulky 5s, but in a video I might say that this is a bulky 5, but it's on a lighter side of a bulky 5. To me, this would be a perfect bulky 5. So, like as I mentioned, they do vary. Weights vary. Even though there's so many bulky 5s, you can get them all together on one table and they won't look the same. So you just gotta kind of roll with it. That's what I do. Anyways, a bulky 5, like I said, in the US is called a bulky. You'll hear it called a chunky, rug yarn, or craft yarn. Now in the UK, it's called a chunky yarn. So again, when I'm opening yarn from the UK, I will call it a chunky yarn because that's what they call it. And in Australia, a bulky 5 would be a 12 ply in Australia. Now we'll move on to a number 6 weight, which is a super bulky. Super bulky number 6. This is super bulky 6. Right there it is. I think that's a perfect super bulky 6 in my opinion. Sometimes they're a little bit thinner and sometimes they're a little thicker. But right now I think that is what I would classify a perfect bulky number 6. Blanket yarn and stuff like that are prime examples of a good perfect bulky number 6. Here is another bulky 6, and you can see how it is. It's a roving style, so it's actually almost, I would consider them both nice bulky number 6s. Yeah, see, that's not far off from each other. Yeah. So, yeah, bulky 6, if you are familiar with blanket yarn, I would say a lot of people would be almost, I would consider that a perfect bulky 6. Or Lion Brand Woolies is a good, their regular bulky 6. That's a good bulky 6 yarn too to compare. In the UK, they call bulky number 6 a super chunky, because they call their 5-weight a chunky. So their 6 would be a super chunky, and in Australia it would be considered a 14 ply. Now there's one left I will show you, which is a jumbo number 7. Now these very, very, very different. I consider anything over, this is a Hobby Lobby in case you're interested. I consider this probably a perfect jumbo number 7. Now sometimes jumbo number 7s are really thick. I haven't really seen much thinner than this, but jumbo number 7 is usually what people make those big blankets out of. They hand knit them, but it could be used for other things, like a big statement scarf or something like that. So that would be the number 7. It's just super thick yarn, and it varies in weight too. I mean, jumbo number 7s can go from that to even thicker and still be classified as a jumbo number 7. So as I wanted to say, any of this yarn that I showed you in any weight class, you really can't say that most of it can be used for anything that you want. Now, I wouldn't make a hat out of a number 7. I'm not saying that you couldn't. I personally wouldn't, because it would be super heavy. But I do make hats out of number 6 and number 5 and number 4 and number 3. That's the lowest I go. But anything else, I probably wouldn't make a hat out of a 0 or 1 or a 2, but I'm not saying it can't be done, because it can. Actually, I'll show you. If you give me 1 second here. This, actually, this is a 2-weight. This was made on my Addy knitting machine. So, yeah, this is a 2-weight hat made on my Addy knitting machine. So, I wouldn't crochet with it. But, yeah, I guess I would make a hat on my knitting machine with a 2-weight. But, and knitters, I don't know. Now, you guys tell me in the comments. I tried to go over this best I can, and hopefully it was informing. But remember, don't limit yourself of yarn just because of the weight. Because some people think, like, if you buy sock yarn, that it can only be used for socks. No way. This is sock yarn. I made a hat out of it on my knitting machine. I've made shawls out of sock yarn. Some people think that if you buy baby yarn, that it can only be used for baby stuff. No, that's nonsense. You can use that stuff for anything that you want. Don't let anybody limit you. Whatever the label says, who cares what that label says? You make whatever you want with it. That's what I do. So, but like I said, number 4 is probably number 4 weight, or the Aran weight, or the 10 ply in Australia is the most common yarn used, I believe, in the US. I'm not going to state that as a fact, but that would be my guess. But yeah, my favorite's the bulky 5. I try to use that. It is really my favorite. Now you let me know in the comments, what is your favorite weight of yarn that you like to use? That's my video. Hopefully that gave you a little bit of information on the different weights, their names. Remember, you use the yarn for whatever you want to use. Don't worry about what the label says. I don't care what the label says. I'll use it for whatever I want. And as far as hook size and stuff, I never go by recommendation. Never. Now that will come to you in time. I don't even read the recommended hook size on a yarn unless I'm doing a review on it. That is the only time I will ever read it, just to show people. Other than that, I'll use whatever hook I want to use. So sometimes I will use a 3 weight, and maybe it will say, like if I was to use this Hirschner's pastry pluff, which is a 3 weight, and they recommend a crochet hook size of F. That's thin, or that's small. That's like a 3.75 millimeter. I would never use that. No, I would use a 6 weight or a 6 millimeter for that, and they're suggesting a 3.75. See how different we are, me and Hirschner's. But that's just me. I like to use bigger hooks, and I like to use bigger yarns. And if the yarn, like I said, I never even read the back of that before. I would probably use a 6 millimeter hook for that. The lowest I would probably go would be maybe a 5.5 or something. Maybe 5 millimeter would be it. I don't use crochet hooks past 5 millimeter anymore. But anyways, now I'm just blabbering on. I hope you took away at least something from my video. Hopefully that I explained it well enough. Remember, let me know in the comments which is your favorite way to yarn to use. I'm interested. Now remember, these were only just examples that I had. The weights can vary from place to place, and then from yarn to yarn. And in time, I can tell by looking at a yarn what weight it is, and in time, the more you practice with yarn, you'll be able to too, if you can't already. It's not hard to do. You'll be able to do it. It just takes, time and learning. A lot of people can do that. And I have a lot of people say a lot of people tell me that they wish that they could look at a yarn and tell the weight. And don't worry, you'll be able to. Expect, just practice. That's all. Practice. Look at all your yarns that you have and check out their weights and compare them with each other, and then eventually you'll know that, you'll just be able to tell, you'll be able to look and tell that I know right there that that's a bulky 5. Even though it says it, I would have told you that before, and I could have told you that was a bulky 5 without even looking at the label. And you guys can do that too. It just takes practice. That's it. So again, hopefully my video helped you, at least one person. If I helped one person today, then my mission was complete, and hopefully I made you smile a little bit, and my ramblings wasn't too much. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you on my next video. I love you all, my yarny peeps. Stay safe, okay? Bye, guys.